This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert, talk, inspiration, and prayer. Listen to my show every Monday from 11 to 12 on KWWJ 1360 AM, KYOK 1140 AM, KCOH at 1230 KCOH.com, Sangeet Radio at 95.1 FM, 1460 AM, KNTH News Talk 1070 AM, The Answer, and Latino Sports, KEYH 850 AM. Call in at 832-570-8075 and follow me on social media. See you then. All right, Houston, Harris County, this is Gilbert Garcia with another tip for me. Thank you, studio audience. It's one of those days where, yes, we want to talk a lot about what's happening with FIFA, all the excitement. It's almost an all-Europe final, but then we've got Argentina in the house. And then, of course, I'm going to have my guest on here, Judge Dwight Jefferson, who's going to talk a little bit of Metro. But we've got to talk about what's happening here with ICE. And I know I've got some people that are going to be calling in. It's just unbelievable what continues to happen with ICE. And we're going to talk about how one of the most recent, Houstonians, really was a Houstonian, Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, was killed. And we're going to talk about, even just today, I was given a story about a fatal Maine shooting that just happened. And I want to get into all of these things, but I'm going to start with a prayer. Because, sometimes we just need the Lord's intervention so people understand, let's keep a cool head. Let's make sure we enforce the laws appropriately, and let's make sure that we're not doing more harm to the citizens than help. And so this is a prayer, and I had some of my people helping with my show put it together. They found it on the internet. They changed a little bit of the wording to make it relevant for today. So it says, Heavenly Father, God of justice and mercy, we come to you with heavy hearts, seeking your divine protection over our communities. We stand firmly against ICE brutality, the misuse of power, and any actions that degrade the dignity and the worth of your children. We pray for the safety of our sons, daughters, neighbors, and friends. Protect them from fear, racial profiling, and unlawful violence. Cover them with your grace whenever they leave their homes, and grant them safe passage back to those who love them. We ask that you root out violence, prejudice, and cruelty within ICE. Give officers a spirit of humility, accountability, and genuine desire to protect and serve all people equally. Break down the systemic walls that shield wrongdoing, and lift up leaders who stand for truth and reform. Lord, comfort the family who carry the painful scars of brutality. Heal our communities and empower us to pursue justice with unwavering faith and love. Let your righteousness roll down like waters and justice like an ever-flowing stream. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Amen. What a great prayer that is. Boy, do we need it now more than ever. I'm going to read an editorial that appeared, and it's by a good friend of mine. He does not know I'm going to read it. So David Contreras, if you're out there in the universe or someone who knows him, let him know. I'm about to read his editorial online because I just thought it was so important. And it says here, and again, this is an editorial from David Contreras, who's a really great scholar and has done so much for our community. It says, When more than 1,000 Houstonians gathered to demand answers after the death of Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, I immediately thought of another gathering nearly 50 years ago in Moody Park. History has a way of asking the same questions of every generation. As a Houston community historian who has spent more than a decade preserving our city's Latino civil rights history, I have learned one lesson above all others. History rarely announces itself while it is happening. It is not defined merely by what occurs. It is defined by how communities choose to respond when they are tested. This is our test. Nearly 50 years ago, Joe Campos Torres, and of course I was very involved with a lot of that recently with their family, and shout out to their family who does so much, Janie and Richard, etc. But Joe Campos Torres died after being beaten by Houston police officers and left in the Buffalo Bayou. The resulting Moody Park unrest of 1978 became a defining chapter in our civil rights struggle. Decades later, Houston saw a similar civic awakening following the murder of George Floyd. These are not distant historical events. They are visceral reminders that public trust, once broken, takes generations to rebuild, and that silence is the primary architect of that decay. Today, Houston faces that same crossroads. On Wednesday, an estimated 1,000 to 1,500 people marched through the East End demanding justice for Lorenzo Salgado Araujo. What makes this moment distinct is the breadth of the coalition demanding change. We are seeing a rare unified front, civil rights organizations, faith leaders, labor unions, veterans, students, and neighborhood groups. In a city often characterized by its fragmentation, this coalition is a signal. It reflects a shared belief that every life deserves dignity, and every investigation demands radical transparency. This moment was not born in a courtroom nor a legislative chamber. It was born in the streets, where ordinary people decided that one family's search for answers had become an entire community's search for justice. While many elected officials have rightly called for transparency, we must move beyond the rhetoric of jurisdiction. Mayor John Whitmire's point regarding the federal status of the investigation is legally accurate, but public leadership requires more than a statement of legal constraints. When a Houstonian loses his life, the city itself is on trial. True leadership at this moment requires the mayor to leverage his office to ensure an independent, civilian-led review process that operates with complete transparency, regardless of which agency held the badge. Whitmire's press conference on Friday shows he's begun moving in that direction. We'll need more than that to uphold the public's trust. The similarities between today's movement and the aftermath of Joe Campos Torres are undeniable. History never repeats itself exactly, but it does echo. And right now, it is asking these three questions. Will we demand transparency that goes beyond press releases? Will we insist on independent oversight that exists outside the current power structure? Will we stay engaged long after the headlines fade to ensure real accountability? More than a decade, my work has centered on preserving the archives of our past. Time and again, these records show that history is shaped not by extraordinary figures, but by ordinary people who refuse to remain silent when silent would have been easier. The names have changed, the uniforms have changed, the generations have changed. The fundamental necessity for justice has not changed. 50 years from now, history will record exactly what we did when our city was tested. Will it not remember our excuses for why we couldn't act? Will it only remember whether we had the courage to stand together when justice demanded it? History is watching. The question is not whether history will remember us. It is what will history say about our integrity when we had the chance to lead. David Contreras, we thank you for writing this item. It is powerful. And I'm going to do one more thing, and then I'm going to see if my guest, Judge Dwight Jefferson, who's one of the most thoughtful persons I know, has any comments about some of these current events. I know we want to talk about Metro, and we will. But I do want to paraphrase Martin Luther King. Dr. King was an extraordinary human being, above all else. And he wrote a line that's from his letter from the Birmingham jail. And I think everyone remembers the role the Birmingham played in the civil rights movement. In fact, it was one time called Bombingham because of all the violence that would happen there in the city. And he said that no injustice exists in isolation. And he mentioned that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That's what he said. And I think in many ways those powerful words echo today. So we're going to talk a little bit also about what just happened in Maine. So these are not isolated incidents. So Judge Jefferson, I want to welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And I know we're going to talk about Metro because you played an instrumental role in its success during our tenure between 2010 and 2016. But I know you're a man of great faith, and you're also a man of great justice, having been a member of the judicial system, a judge. What's your take on all these things that are happening with ICE? And do you have any wisdom to share both to ICE or to the citizens?
Well, I was listening to the opinion piece you were reading there earlier, and I thought the point was made very clear in the article that you can't rest on jurisdictional limitations. And I think it's the responsibility of the leaders in this community, meaning the mayor, the district attorney, and those different leadership individuals, as well as the agencies that they control, law enforcement, and the judiciary, to see that in fact the investigation is done transparently. It's not enough to just say, well, that's federal jurisdiction. That's not sufficient, because it's our responsibility, number one, to protect our community and not leave that or say that's a responsibility of Washington, D.C.
I think that's right. Go ahead, producer. What are you going to do here? You're going to move the mic a little closer? Great. Let's do that. And Judge Jefferson, if you don't mind kind of leaning up forward. I think that's right. And, you know, it seems to me the mayor's doing a 180. And you know what? Rather than criticize for the 180, you know what? I'm glad he's doing a 180 because, no, I mean, listen, there's plenty to criticize, no doubt, and we'll be open to some of that. But I do think I don't know if he's come around, whether it's the public pressure, which clearly it is. But at the end of the day, I think he's now getting involved saying we need some transparency and we need an investigation. I do know that the district attorney has taken on a very strong leadership role. I mean, he's been very, very active, Sean Tier, and I think that's great. I think LULAC has been very, very active, taking a leadership role, like David Contreras, Isidro Garza, and others. I think that's very clear. So, Mayor, we're ready for you to seize the time, because these are critical times that we need strong local leadership to say it's just not right. It's just not right, Judge.
Well, you know, I mean, I think that there is an example out there, and that's in Minneapolis. I mean, I have great respect for the people of Minneapolis because they stood up for their neighbors, and their leadership insisted upon accountability. And so I think it's important that our leadership and that we stand up for our community as well. And someone who's been living and working in the community for 35 years, and I can understand. I mean, if there's an unmarked van with a bunch of guys running after me, I mean, I'm gonna. I mean, I'm
I'm gonna run.
I'm
I'm gonna run because nothing good can happen if
I'm
those,
not going to stop and get out of the car,
that's
stop and allow them to walk up on me. So those tactics are, uh, I mean, they're just, I mean, that is not law enforcement and that is not proper policing.
You know, what's interesting to me is this concept of, and I'm not going to be able to get it right because I need a fact check myself. And hopefully Isidro's going to be calling in soon. But that is, number one, why is everything so secretive? Why do they cover why do they wear masks? Why are they covered? Why are they an unmarked cars? I mean, why is that? And why do they not have police cameras? You know, when I ask those questions, they're rhetorical questions, but the bottom line is, it just seems that people have a right to know, and by having those safeguards in place, I think it will make the officers more measured in their approach to their job. I mean, more measured.
What meaning, if they can in fact be identified, that may cause them to restrain themselves and to follow the constitutional provisions with regard to how you go about arresting people and entering people's businesses and homes.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what I'm saying. You just said it much better than I did. Because at the end of the day, everyone is innocent until proven guilty, and that's how we should behave. I'm going to do something.
Well, now,
go ahead, please, please, Judge.
And then one point. Well, first of all, on what you're saying, those tactics really amount to terrorism. Okay, because when somebody is chasing you in an unmarked car, that is to terrorize you, to intimidate you, and so that's what's involved in that. And so I don't know if that's just part of the policy or that's part of the plan in imposing the policy to get people to self-deport, or what. But it's having that type of an impact. And we know it doesn't have to be done that way because if you recall, President Obama was criticized heavily for being, I think they called him the deporter-in-chief, mm-hmm. in that they were able, in fact, to deport a large number of undocumented people and not do it in this type of fashion, but a more directed approach, and not an approach founded on we're going to scare the hell out of everybody.
Well, you know, I just want to do one more. I know we have a couple of callers waiting. I tell you what, let's take one real quick. I just want to go through something that came to my desk here this morning. So is there a Bobby there? Bobby, are you there?
Standing by, Gilbert.
Bobby, what do you got for us today here on A Tip from Gilbert with Judge Dwight Jefferson? We've been talking about ICE. But what do you got? Anything you got?
Yeah, Mr. Gilbert, Your Honor, Judge Jefferson. So Gilbert, the other day we had a good brother on. He was giving us a tip. So I'm almost 100 years old, Gilbert, and I have never heard of one crow. One crow. I heard of Jim Crow, but one crow, man, I had never heard of it. But this brother broke it down. He said, and now is the time for, it seems like this is the time for the one, we're in the era called one crow. Oh, talk about it, Gilbert. So thank you, sir.
And Bobby, you're almost 100 years young, I think, because you sound like you're ready to go, to go mix it up there with these guys.
Right. Well, like, hey, Gilbert, I mean, believe it or not, that was the time they didn't want people like me in the Marine Corps, right? Mm-hmm. So I said, man, sign me up, man. Sign me up. But so sometimes, Gilbert, and you know this too by life, that sometimes you just got to try to get in, and then after you get in, you got to try to fit in. And the good brother, he said for 30, 35 years, all he want to do is just say, God bless America. He raised his family and bought a house, and he had a son that is an educator, is a school teacher. Man, that's all he wants. Say, let the tare grow with the wheat. Okay, Gilbert. Thank you, baby.
Thank you, Bobby. I appreciate Bobby. I'm going to just talk about the headline says ICE involved in fatal Maine shooting less than a week after Houston Salgado killing, official says. And this is an article that was updated July 13th at 9:29 a.m. So I'm just going to quickly do it, if you don't mind, Judge. It says U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So that's ICE. And by the way, since when does ICE even do these sorts of things? I don't remember ICE doing a lot of this. When I was growing up, ICE was just sort of like Border Patrol sort of issues and confiscating drugs. Now it seems to be preying upon just people. But let me keep going. Was involved in a fatal shooting in Biddeford, I may probably saying it wrong, Biddeford, Maine. Monday, less than a week after ICE agents shot and killed Lorenzo Salgado Araujo in Houston, according to Maine Speaker of the House, Ryan Fector. I probably said that incorrect. He offered a few details of what he said was a shootout on Facebook shortly before 7:20 Central Time. He said state police and the Department of Public Safety were at the scene, and he expects the FBI to investigate. A person was killed, he wrote. ICE was involved. Now, ICE did not immediately return a request for comment, and local police directed the Chronicle to the federal agency. The city is a coastal Maine city about 15 miles north of Portland. More than 21,000 people live there, according to the website. So there's going to be a lot more information about this episode. And, you know, it's very discouraging. It's very disheartening when you see these sorts of things. And if you were the judge on this case following this, you know, what would be your take? I mean, you're a man of great faith and a man of great judicial restraint, but yet doing the right thing, as they say. Spike Lee says. What's your take there, Judge?
Well, when you look at this as a case, the question is going to be, first of all, use of deadly force, because this is police activity. And so that's where it starts, use of deadly force. And then next after that is going to be whether the use of deadly force was justifiable or unjustifiable. And right now I'm dealing with a case where I represent a family whose 17-year-old was killed in a shooting by police. And so the question, was it justified or was it unjustified as far as the use of deadly force? And there's a recent Supreme Court case from last year where the Supreme Court ruled in reversing the Fifth Circuit that the use of deadly force is unjustified if the officer actually placed themselves in a position of risk of serious bodily injury. And so what that means is that if the officer does not follow proper law enforcement procedures, for example, in that particular case, there was a traffic stop. The driver starts to pull away. The officer jumps onto the car, reaches in to riot the door of the car, and goes in and shoots the driver and kills him. The Supreme Court said in that case, that use of deadly force was not justified because that officer, by doing what he did, placing himself in risk, as opposed to stepping back, getting a license, getting in his car and following him, he decides to jump onto the car, hold onto the car as it pulls off, and he said, I had to shoot because I was at the risk of getting hurt. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, but you put yourself in that position.
Very interesting. I get it now.
And so that's not a justifiable use of deadly force. So the question in this case is going to be, was the use of deadly force by this ICE agent justifiable based upon proper police procedures and policies with regard to how you deal with a particular situation?
And are these ICE agents, are they trained? Police go through a whole academy and so forth, and are they getting the proper training? Do you think that's one of the issues here?
Well, I mean, my understanding, just with what I've
Yep.
seen through the public media, is that's been one of the complaints or questions with regard to the ICE agents as to whether or not they have, in fact, received proper training before being placed out on the street.
See, not only should they get training about being on the street, but they should be getting training like you're explaining to me and to the citizens of Houston and Harris County about what can or cannot be done. I mean, what are what's the right word? Rules of engagement. They should be trained on that. We have another caller on there. Show me that name again. Was it Shiloh? Shiloh, are you there? You got Gilbert Garcia with a tip for me with our guest, Judge Dwight Jefferson. What do you got there, Shiloh?
Hi, my name is Sheila, and I'm calling.
Oh,
in with a
Sheila, I
question.
apologize. Please excuse me.
We heard what you would do about this case if you were a judge, but having served as a lawyer, I was kind of curious as to what kind of case you would build to get the most respectable outcome, in your opinion, about the murder of Mr. Salgado.
Well, I mean, the strongest case from what I can see is that, I mean, looking at the facts, you have ICE, that is a governmental agency that is with law enforcement authority or whatever, and you have a citizen in Lorenzo, and you have the use of deadly force. And so again, to me, the primary question is going to be, it starts with probable cause. Well, what probable cause did you guys have for following him in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Like, was this targeted? Or was this just random? What's the policy? Are your officers told just go out and drive around, and if you see some Mexicans who look like they, maybe going to work somewhere or doing that type of work that we believe immigrants are primarily doing, and if you see them driving around, pull them over, check on them? Or is it targeted in that they had information that these people were undocumented and this is where they were, and they went out to get them? That's where it starts. And then, because that deals with their probable cause for following and stopping them, okay? And then from there, then you're going to get down to, as I just pointed out earlier, the use of deadly force, and whether the use of deadly force was justified or unjustified. And then that will go to the core of whether or not and where and when and how there is liability as to liability for the conduct of the person.
Well, I understand that, and Sheila, stay with us. Did I say your name right, Sheila?
Yeah, that's correct.
Sheila.
Thank you, Shank. Thank you. Stay with us for a second for any follow-up. I understand that the community, and I think LULAC, if I'm fact-checked, I don't know for sure, but I think LULAC is the one that started a GoFundMe page. And I believe there is no amount of money that can make up for what has happened here. Nothing. But lost wages, things of that nature matter, especially to a family in need. And so I think they've now are up to $500,000. At least that's what I saw somewhere. I forgot if it was in the Chronicle or sent to me by some of my LULAC friends. But to support that family and to handle some of the expenses related to all of this. Shiloh, what anything you have, any follow-up you have for Judge Jefferson?
That's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you for calling in. That was a wonderful thing. Thank you so much.
Hopefully I answered your question, Shiloh.
Yeah, I think we did. We got another call that's come through in just 1 second, Judge. And, it's just one of those things where I think it always takes a crisis to get attention, unfortunately. But if something good comes out of this, let's make it a positive, which is some sort of reform of ICE nationally, once and for all. And let's see, we got a caller there. Who do we have there? John Paul. John Paul, are you there? John Paul. John Paul, are you there? John Paul. Can you hear me,
Hello?
John Paul?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you got me. A tip from me, Gilbert Garcia, with Judge Dwight Jefferson. We're talking a little bit about ICE. Not a little bit. We're talking a lot about ICE here. We're going to get into things about Metro, but there's just so much happening with ICE in the last really 7 days. What do you have for us, my friend?
So I guess I was really wondering is, as a former judge, how difficult is it to maintain your kind of integrity when you're facing so much public pressure, as well as like the federal government and them pressuring you as well? And, you know, there's so much criticism going on with the judiciary system and how ICE is affecting just civilians' daily life. I was just kind of wondering if you could give me some insight on that.
Well, as far as federal judges, really it probably comes down to just what type of person they are and what their beliefs and concepts of justice and things of that nature are concerned, because federal judges have lifetime appointments. And so a federal judge, unlike a state judge, does not have to concern him or herself with the political ramifications of their decisions. And so as far as federal judges are concerned, they're free to apply their interpretations and understandings of the law as they see it, as well as ethics and morals and things of that nature.
But let me just interject one thing. If you please don't lose your train of thought. Mm-hmm. But one of my colleagues from Yale is Judge Boasberg, and of course he is the one that has been very critical of the president and blocking the president of all the things he's been trying to do. And boy, the president is after him. You know, in other words, I understand you have a lifetime appointment, but golly, it can't be very fun to have the president of the United States saying things about you, wanting to remove you, wanting to get you impeached. I mean, that's got to be heavy duty, right?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, the other side of that is that there are people who support the president, and there are people out there, as you know, I mean, there have been federal judges. I was in San Antonio years ago working for a firm when a federal judge down there was assassinated. And so we've seen, and so as far as federal judges, I mean, they don't have the risk of political ramifications from the standpoint of running for office and getting elected, but they are exposed to the political ramifications of people who are unstable or whatever. And because they have that freedom to do what they believe is right, can expose themselves or their families to violence. And so I'm sure that the U.S. Marshals have assigned additional officers to your friend and his family to protect him in the event that someone is motivated by the president's criticism of him to try to do harm to him.
And, you know, and stay on, John Paul, you know, when I think about organizations, and so you talked about the judicial system, it really starts at the top. When you look at the Supreme Court, and maybe I'm just not in tune, but it seems this is such a political Supreme Court. I don't know if it's always like this, though, or am I more aware? But it seems to me they are actively trying to look at precedents, of various precedents, and trying to reverse things that now they politically just disagree with. Is that just normal at the Supreme Court, or is this such a politically focused Supreme Court? What's your take on all that?
Well, I think that this Supreme Court is probably a more politically focused Supreme Court than, let's say, the Supreme Court from the mid-century to the end of the 20th century. You know, the Warren Court was Brown versus Board of Education, mm-hmm. and a lot of the different civil rights things, and that was followed by the Burger Court. He was appointed Chief Justice by Nixon, and it was more conservative, but it just was not as political to me as a court is today. For example, in this most recent decision on birthright citizenship, Clarence Thomas and Alito, I mean, they're supposed to be what are called originalists, and they look to the original intent when it comes to the constitutional amendment to the 14th Amendment. But they say that they're originalists, but then they come back and instead of looking at the express language, all persons, they want to say, well, they wrote all persons, but we know this was right after the Civil War, and so it just applied to the children of slaves. And then you wonder, well, I mean, like, those guys were pretty smart then. I kind of think if they just wanted it to apply to the children of slaves, they would have
just written that. That's right.
They would have written that down. And so today, to go back and say, and so we don't accept their express language. We want to say that this is what they really meant. I mean, that's really it's disheartening when you see a Supreme Court justice do that, because, I mean, it really, to me, shows a level of politicization that's unfortunate, and it will give us bad law like we have with Citizens United.
Right, and it all goes back to what cases are they willing to hear, and that's showing you the direction they're going. Yes. Because they're going back to cases that have been settled law for 50 years, and they want to look at them, which is really their way of saying we want to undo them. It says here, Jesse Rodriguez, Jumpin' Jess, says that Representative Christina Morales, who's awesome, is calling on the Texas Rangers to get involved in the investigation of the unwarranted action and murder of innocent victims. Very good. Charlotte Garcia is saying, Cesar Garza, please call the show. Very good. So, Charlotte, thank you for jumping in with me. John Paul, what else do you got there, my friend?
Nothing really.
John Paul, let me tell you, let me just tell you this, okay? As a judge, the number one quality that a judge must have in order to properly do their job is integrity. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And that's the number one thing, and that is because, as you pointed out, there will be pressures applied. There will be pressures applied. And so having the integrity to do the right thing.
Amen.
Yes,
Amen.
sir. Thank you.
Jump.
And I Gilbert, on your point, too,
yes, please.
Just one last thing. When you talk about politicization, the Federalist Society, have you heard of it?
Yes.
Okay. To me, that is subversion. What the Federalist Society requires, and they're responsible for many of the federal judges that we have today, is instead of, in my opinion, instead of saying we want judges, we want a pledge from a judge that you're going to be fair and impartial regarding any case that comes before you. They want to know in advance what your ideology is, okay? And in a sense, how you are going to rule on particular matters that come before you. For example, how are you on environmental law and environmental regulation? How are you, and it almost seems as though there's that litmus test that comes before you can even be considered to be a federal judge when the people come through the Federalist Society. I just have a problem with people coming onto the bench with preconceived opinions as to how they're going to rule on things.
That's right. They should just look at the facts at that time, right? They should just, why go in with well, I think this. I mean, the whole point is to be fair and impartial and hear the facts and then rule accordingly.
Look, you wouldn't believe the number of cases that I preside over trials that at the end of the plaintiff's case, I said, oh, man, boy, this is what hell of a case the plaintiff is going to win this.
Yeah.
and then by the end of the trial, after you get the other side of the story.
Yeah. Then you realize, you're just like, wait a minute. I understand that. John Paul, thank you for calling in, my friend. We have another caller there. Is there a Linda there? Linda. Linda. Are you there, Linda?
Linda? Yes, I'm here, and I've been saying yes more times.
Well,
how are you all doing this morning?
Then a hamster, that's a lot of times. Linda, I apologize to you. You got me, Gilbert Garcia, of course, and you got Judge Dwight Jefferson. And what do you have to say about any of the stuff we're talking about today, or anything you want to talk to Houston or Harris County about?
Well, I'm going to be glad when you bring on Miss I think her last name is Hinojosa, who's running the Democrats for governor.
Yes.
But let's get back to what's happening with ICE, which I wondered why they were stalling on their nasty secret police raids. National Public Radio, NPR, had a person on there who stated that 80% of the arrests had no criminal charges, none. And how they target these people is that they go down, the folks that are going down to fill out the papers or to continue the process, which we all knew was delayed. You have to go to work. You can't spend all day long there. At some time, you got to go out and earn money. These are the people that they are pulling in. They are defenseless, and because they are the ones most likely not to raise any heck, and they quickly sign the papers to deport. That's what is happening. It's secret police. No, I don't know why someone would think in East End, and he comes from Brooklyn, Al Sharpton, I come from Queens. I still know better than to have a group of people and a truck full of tools in Houston, and I'm just going to stop because you're telling me to stop. I don't know who you are.
Right.
Who are you? You don't have any identification. Then not only do we want independent, but they must wear badges. Trump got them out of that, and we bless them with so many billions of dollars that woman will never have to go around. I think that's the same one who had the airplane fitted. She's out there with her guns and her hats and everything and her designer wear.
She's gone. She got fired.
Yes, I know, but she's gone. But she's also hired by another agency. She's already spent our tax money.
That's right.
So what did she got fired? If she were black, she'd be in jail.
Amen to that. I mean, that's right.
And since we are black and brown people, the ones that are always the victims of this, let us not stop. I'm sorry, I had hip surgery. As soon as my hip gives me grace, I'm getting out there and picketing. I'm not going to stop. How dare they? They shot him in the stomach. That's almost pulled him out the car, shot him in the stomach, and that just makes certain that he's not going to survive.
Well, then going back to the earlier comments, and then how in any way can that be defended as a justified use of deadly force? I mean, it can't.
Yes, unless you go in front of Sam Alito or somebody like that. Look at the folks that look at what we have on the Supreme Court. They can change the date. He now can fire independent agencies.
I mean,
how can it be justified? You don't have people with a conscience. They don't believe there's a heaven.
I mean, I really think it goes a lot to the comments of the first opinion piece that Gilbert read, and that is that the only way that this can survive is if people are silent. And so what you just promised to do, as soon as your hip is ready to get out there and join in these protests, then that is what it's going to take to see that this family and the rest of our community get justice. So thank you for that, and get that hip ready ASAP.
Well, I don't know if you have a kangaroo court. I've been when the guy is in jail that shot the man, and I went down and I protested with that. I've gone on the No Kings March, but these things are clearly against the Constitution. You have secret police and Guantanamo Bay and private jailhouses that they're getting paid to just throw somebody like me before my days on earth are finished into jail. But I have hope. Okay.
Well, I will say this: in addition to marching, one thing that we've got to see that this community, that East End community, and all the communities involved here is that, as we know, if we want change, we have to march to the polls.
Yes.
That's number one.
Not only do you have to march to the polls, but you also have to know who you're voting for. They need to bring back civics. Just going and casting your ballot. Look at the people that voted for Lindsey Graham. Look at the people. Come on now, just voting. You got to be smart about who you're voting for. No, you got to and to make the decisions. No, you're voting in people that have absolutely that have no experience, don't have the education. I think how many judge positions are there that you don't even have to have a degree in jurisprudence?
Well,
this is in Texas.
I'd like
that's
to think
justice of the peace court.
Yeah, I'm thinking that. And by the way, I just saw. Was there Janie Torres? Janie, I'm going to put you on 1 second. I know that you're holding.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, Linda.
Get off.
No, don't get off yet, because I really think you've got a lot to say, and I really appreciate when you call in, because you're very thoughtful, you're very passionate, and as Judge Jefferson says, let's get that hip fixed so we can get out there together. And as it relates to knowing who you vote for, I agree with you. And the thing about it is, what's hard for me, and I'm going to confess to you, is I'd like to think I'm educated and all those things, because, I'd like to think so. But when I see all these judicial races, I don't really know some of these different courts and what they do or don't do. Yeah. And it's just hard for me. And I don't know. So sometimes I just go with, some of the recommendations of things that I see out there. But I know there's got to be a better way. So touche to you about, let's all get better informed on who we're voting for.
And demanding. Every time I can't turn on my television and not hear about what happened in Mystic, whatever that place is. I'm sorry for the children. If there was room at the funeral, and if I were invited, I would have gone. But I didn't know any of them, but I did thank you. I'm sorry for them. But what about the 19 children in Uvalde? Every time you turn on the television, there is Paxton and Abbott sitting there meeting with those parents. They get carte blanche. They didn't even fill out the paperwork for those 19 kids in Uvalde for them, and then announced that they paid them. Gave them a 14-page application. Mm-hmm. I'm through. Have a great day.
Thank you for calling in. And call in again, please. Is Janie on the? I want to get Janie on there. Janie, are you on the phone? Janie.
Hello, good morning.
Janie, how are you?
I'm doing very good. Thank you.
Well, it's so great to hear your voice. I have Judge Jefferson on the line with us. And why don't you just quickly, just so Houston, Harris County, hears, how are you feeling? And when you think about what's happening today, does it bring memories to you? And how are you feeling about everything?
Well, I'm feeling very horrible, very disgusted, very saddened. But at the same time, I am strong. I'm going to remain strong. I am going to remain grounded and still take to the streets and fight and speak up for what is going on, for what's been going on. This is nothing new to us, Gilbert. This is nothing new to what they did. This has been happening. This has been going on for decades. Since the case of my brother up until today, it's the same thing. It's just a different year, a different excuse why they're doing it. It's just the simple fact that they want to erase us, period. It has always been a plan. It was just a plan that was being put together so that way they can carry it out, plain and simple.
But
Plain and simple.
when you think about your brother, and again, Joe Compastores, I mean, what just a terrible, terrible thing. It's just hard to believe. If you blink your eye, do you just say, my God, I just thought we would have learned something from that. And here we are again. And I know I hear you, but I'm just like, when does it end? When does it end?
Exactly.
And then also, we don't even know, as far as this ICE agent is concerned, that's kind of different from your son, because the people who were your brother, the people who were involved with your brother, they were local people. They were police from HPD. But as far as the ICE agent, I mean, we have no idea who he is, where he's from.
Exactly.
I mean, was he just deposited here into the community with no knowledge of the community at all, or no understanding of what the state laws are, or what the norms are in communities that police officers will actually know about? And so, I mean, that's an additional problem with this whole ICE operation and the way it works. It's like, where are these people from?
Well, Jay, let me ask you this, because, of course, your brother was brutally murdered and just thrown in the bayou and said terrible things about him, the police officers, et cetera. Let me ask you, is there any words that you could say to comfort the family? What can you tell them? I mean, how do you get over such a thing? And maybe you just never do. But how do you at least try how to come to terms with it, to try to seek justice?
Gilbert, there's nothing I can possibly tell to them to try to comfort them, because the damage is already done. Their heart is ripped in two, and that will be forever. That would be forever. Even if we do get justice for the family, for Araujo, if we do get justice for him, the heart is forever crushed. And memories will always be there. Reminders will always be there. So long as the agency continues to do this and to kill us, it's never going to heal. I'm not even healed myself, Gilbert, and this is already going to be 50 years. I just learned how to manage it. That's it. But it is the same, for the simple fact that Joe was a U.S. citizen. Joe was in the military.
It's hard to believe.
And then this beautiful soul today, he had a beautiful family. It's just overwhelming, the love that he had in his heart as a human being, as a person. His only crime, they say, was because he was undocumented. Really? My brother was born here. And yet they still told him them ugly words. Let's see if this wetback can swim, before they pushed him in the bayou.
That's just unbelievable.
Let's see if this wetback can swim, before they pushed him in the bayou. They knew he was a U.S. citizen. They knew he was in the military. They still did it anyway. It's because they're trying to erase us. That's why. But I will not give up. I will continue to keep fighting for justice for us all, and I will always stand by the family.
Well, you are just a real angel. And I want to just read a couple of comments. There was one I thought I saw from Oliver. I don't recall the last name, where he's had a message for the mayor. Let me just see what that says again. Stay with me, Janie. It says here, Oliver Rodriguez. Oliver, thank you. John Whitmire, what are you doing to get ICE out of Houston? That's what we want to know. And let's go with Hannah. Where was Hannah? Hannah had something, and there were a couple of other good. Let's see. Hannah said, praying for the family and loved ones affected by the recent ICE shooting in Houston. Every life matters, and every tragedy deserves truth, transparency, and justice. I've getting a lot of emails about lots of different comments. And, Jane, you are such an inspiration, because I can't help but to think, Gilbert Garcia, I'm a mere mortal, whereas you are just a saint. If this had happened to my family, I think I'd be so bitter. I'd be going around life just angry all the time. And yet
Yes.
you are just so, I mean, you're like a walking angel. And I really mean that sincerely.
Thank you, Gilbert. I can't go through life bitter and angry, because then I won't get anything done. I won't accomplish anything. And then they will win. They will really win. And I'm not about to give them that. No. And Mayor Whitmire, ICE needs to be out of Houston. Period. They should have never been here to begin with. I always feared that it was going to be me, but it's still me. I still feel it.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, the mayor has, says things that are bureaucratic, like, oh, it's a federal issue. I can't get involved, et cetera. That listen, when you're the mayor, you're in charge.
You can. You're in charge.
This is a strong mayor system, and at the end of the day, I think he's coming around. I hope he's coming around. And you know what? If you don't mind, I'd love to have you on my show, because I think this is worth the whole episode of your wisdom on how we should, as a community, I don't know, find a silver lining and use this for good and positive change.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to reach out to you because I want to get you on the show.
Okay, Gilbert.
Thank you. I'm hugging you right. I'm hugging you in cyberspace.
Likewise, and thank all of y'all, and please continue to fight the good fight. We're not done. We're not done.
We are not done. Amen to that.
No.
Thank you for calling in.
Yes, thank you.
Now, Judge, this was supposed to be a show about Metro, but you know what? This is such a timely thing, and your choice words and your experience and wisdom has just been so great and made this show. But I want to give a couple of factoids because I rode the rail to one of the games. I forgot which game, FIFA games, and I took it here by my address here, which is right here on McKinney. I forgot I walked down to Main Street because I'm on Austin. It was like 3 blocks. It took me 4 minutes to walk. And then I was 1 block. And
That's
then
good. That was good for you, that little walk.
That's right. That was good for me.
I mean, we had data on that between a space of them from a quarter of a mile to half mile.
There you go. And then I was there, and then I had 1 or 2 stops, and I got on the rail, and it must have been, I'm just making up. I have all these things pictured, and I'm going to be putting something together to show. It was probably maybe 15% full at that time. And with every stop along the way, it got more full and more full and more full. And by the time we got maybe 3 stops from the stadium, it was packed. I mean, we got to stops, and we couldn't let anybody else on.
Right.
It was packed. And I mean, everybody was orderly. Everyone was excited. Everything was, it was air conditioning. It was cool, comfortable. We get out. As soon as we get out, there were Metro people saying, thank you for riding. It was unbelievable. And then they said, and come this way. And there was a long, like a line. It was very organized, though. Long line of where to walk through. There were some water stations there that you could get, water. There were some AC rooms that you could go sit in and cool off. It was incredible. And you know what? It took all of about 30 minutes. And you get right there at the stadium. And for all those Metro haters, and we know who they all are, shame on you for saying that, no one rides it, this and that. If you were to have all these decades, instead of been complaining and putting obstacles to Metro, if you had been supporting Metro, we would have had a lot more federal funds. We would have had a complete line. We would have been connecting the rail to the bus rapid transit, and we would have been able to do so much more. Shame, shame, shame. And I'm told that the Green Line, which goes to the East End, was super packed, especially for the Mexico games. Mm-hmm. And I mean, again, at capacity. And I was talking to some of our good friends at Metro, and they said that we were clearing 30,000 riders a day. It's unbelievable. I want to say to Laredo Taqueria, they have the best carne guisada, and I don't get paid to say that other than good food. And they're on Irvington. But you know what, Judge Jefferson, I know you're going to be moving soon. I got to have you back because we get to talk about Metro. What are your thoughts about all these Metro haters and what they have done to deprive this city of wonderful mass transit, that we could have never hosted the FIFA, we could have never had a successful Super Bowl, all the things without the rail line?
Well, I think it's important to expand the rail line as we see development moving farther west, and I think the BRT, the bus system,
right. On Post Oak, the bus rapid transit. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, right, to get the bus rapid
That's
transit,
right.
but also, too, so that we stop relying on buses as much. And I just use the Dallas area as an example of how they really maximize their funding. And so you have commuter rail as well as the rail, inner city rail. But I just have one criticism of Metro.
Go.
Do what you say you're going to do. I voted for the last bond election, and that included BRT, that included extension of rail. That's how it was sold to me. That's why I voted for it and supported it. Then the bonds were issued, but we don't see the project. We aren't seeing the BRT project along Westheimer that was canceled.
That's right. And remember, you and I and all of us on our board did a referendum to get funding, more money for Metro, and it was passed by almost 80% of the vote throughout the county, and that includes the unincorporated parts of Harris County. And then came the second referendum, which passed with almost 70% that you're referring to. At the end of the day, the voters have spoken. And what happened to the will of the voters, Houston, Harris County? We're going to talk a lot more about it when I convince Judge Jefferson to really come back on this show right away, because the will of the voters needs to be the will of Metro. There you have it.
Do what you say you're going to do.
Do what you say. Do what you say and say what you don't. Say what you do and do what you say. Right. There you go. All right, Houston, Harris County, this is Gilbert Garcia saying, we'll see you next time. All right, Houston, Harris County, this is Gilbert Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert, Talk, Inspiration, and Prayer.
Watch and hear my show on YouTube, Facebook, RSS, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify.
And follow me on social media. See you then.